Lamar Jackson cannot stop gushing about Rashod Bateman. We talk about what he had to say, as well as him weighing in on the running back battle upcoming between Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. All that and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you. All podcasting platforms. That includes a video form on YouTube where you can like and subscribe, and also an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We bring you 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. We go live after games. We have bonus episodes. We have everything Ravens related here on the show. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. In the house with us today, it is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail Q. Baltimore, huge Week 13 matchup against the Eagles upcoming. Of course, they get the job done against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Getting some momentum back after that tough Pittsburgh loss a couple of weeks ago. Now he's got to keep moving forward and hope to get a big win before the bye.
Isn't it interesting how the cliches of football keeps repeating itself? And it doesn't matter if you played back in the 90s when I did or current day. One game at a time, one play at a time, stacking games, all those things. You know, week-to-week league, I've heard that one quite a bit lately, because when we were on last, it was the world is falling apart. You just lost all kinds of momentum and, you know, you suck at life. The football season is over. You can no longer beat anyone. And what is wrong with, whether it be Lamar, Derrick, the tight ends no longer do anything. The defense can't stop a cold. You know, it just doesn't matter. So now it's, oh my God, well, okay, here we go again. They get into this like repetitive, cycle of an up and down. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the big thing is across the NFL, and honestly, whether it's now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we can talk about streaks, we can talk about momentum, we can talk about this. It is that one game at a time mentality. And that to me is what I think in this league, you got to be able to go with it, because it's you have to have a short memory, essentially, is what a lot of people say, right? I mean, that's the thing, short memory for a lot of different things. And so in my opinion, you can't dwell on Pittsburgh. You couldn't have dwelled on Pittsburgh if you wanted to win the Chargers game. And it's that mentality that you have to have. And I know you're very familiar with it, Q, from your playing days of like, if you make a mistake or if you lose a tough game or, something doesn't go your way, you got to forget it, because next week is coming. It's not slowing down for anybody.
See, here's the thing. When you look at the bad teams, they can't get out of their way. They can't rebound off of a bad performance. They can't make the necessary corrections as a coaching staff, as far as play calling, as far as, putting guys in great positions to win. And that's really what the struggle becomes. How can you be consistent? How can you be consistent in overcoming? Because the league, sometimes you're going to, win games that you should have lost, and vice versa. You're going to lose games that you easily should have won. A play here or there absolutely dictates. I mean, think about it. Justin Tucker, just does Justin Tucker and makes 2 field goals. We're talking about a whole different, flow of a game with Pittsburgh. But then if you look at Pittsburgh, what happens with them? They struggle on a first half, nice, relatively football weather night, into a classic second half football weather night with snow. And they can't get out of their own way. They actually have momentum clearly in their way in the third quarter and was unable to finish the game. So are we dwelling? Yes, I am dwelling, because I don't want to see that happen again. I don't want to see the Steelers. I don't want to see the Las Vegases. I don't want to see the Clevelands. 50-50 as far as the Kansas City game. I get it. Toe here, play there. Offsides, whatever. But those other 3 games, and we've we've talked about all season long. Seems like the Ravens get in their own way, whether it be untimely penalties that gets them off schedule, or they have some sort of breakdown defensively, a la Eddie Jackson and no longer here. But that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, a team that can, when they put their mind to it, handle adversity, overcome it, and win ball games. And that's what we're hoping that they believe for themselves as we step into what really is going to be yet another test. What is this test? A big boy one when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So whether it be you're looking at going all the way out to the West Coast, Harbaugh Bowl number 3, how all the distractions can or cannot be, but to be able to hone in, lock in, do your thing, get the job done, that says an awful lot about this ball club.
It does. And speaking of big games and belief and all of that, Lamar was asked about Rashod Bateman and was asked about his receivers during his press conference this week, and really, got real on him in a good way and said, look, I expect that stuff out of him. I expect Rashod to go up there and get that ball. I expect that to happen. And that is the ultimate belief that you can have in a player and a receiver. When you have that expectation, he said that he believes that Rashod is a wide receiver 1. And he said, I don't care what anybody else says. I believe Rashod is a 1. I believe that. He believes that. And he says he's always on his guys, always on his receivers, his tight ends. And of course, that's the sign of a good leader. We've seen Lamar's leadership style evolve as he has over the course of his career. But I think that this is another big stepping stone for Rashod, because obviously he's earned a lot of respect and a lot of trust with Lamar. You and IQ talked about it almost every week leading up to the season about how important it was that those guys were able to get more and more on the same page each and every week. And it seems like that has happened. He made that great catch against Los Angeles on Monday night. It just feels like as the season has gone on, they've established that connection that we were hoping for. And it's a two-way street where Lamar's trusting Rashod more. Rashod is able to get on Lamar's page more. And it just seems like a partnership that really I'm very happy with how it's gone over the course of the season.
It's interesting because obviously from a familial aspect of things, I was at every doggone OTA that was available for the media, every training camp that was available for the media. And I got a chance in seeing all that relationship kind of start to formulate. And I think it was where they had a rain practice, and literally there were a few guys dropping passes just because of the wet weather. And Rashod went up and made a beautiful contested catch. Probably was over Eddie Jackson, but I digress. He made a contested catch. And in doing so, it was interesting because that right there, in my mind, it was like a turning point, because even the next practice, Lamar was feeding him. And I think that, he always had that Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers energy and chemistry. But it was, yes, okay, now put it into play during the regular season. Remember, in the Kansas City game, it was a little shaky until, Lamar got into trouble. He slings a beautiful ball down the sideline in that cover 2 hole, and Big Play Bait was right on time and was able to snatch it out of the air. And I think that's where it just kept on rolling from there. So I know that this contested catch, this latest one for a touchdown, Lamar was right. Hey, man, I expected of him, and gave him some love by saying, in my mind, he is receiver 1, and he has that receiver 1 mentality. So good. You need guys. You don't need just one player. You need multiple. And that's the pick your poison offense that we've come to enjoy and like.
Yeah, and I know there have been a couple of different variations of Lamar's quote floating around. For the clarity of the actual quote, Lamar said a wide receiver, not 1, not wide receiver 1 of the Ravens, which I think he believes Zay Flowers is a wide receiver 1, and a bunch, he is confident in his guys, right? But that mentality, Rashod knows that he's that guy, and he has expressed that confidence. And honestly, I love that he does that. Zay does the same thing. This is an offense that picks itself up, picks each other up, and that's what you got to have. You got to have belief in your guys, and it didn't feel like that was there over the first couple of years of Lamar and Rashod because they just didn't have that time together. But now that they have had it, and now that we're seeing Rashod on full display, and shout out to you, Q, you were on this train from day one. You knew what Rashod was capable of, and now we're seeing it on a week-to-week basis, which is incredible. And moving forward, it's going to be even more important because, again, the leadership style we see out of Lamar, obviously you were there, you watched it during all of the practices leading up to the season, but him getting on guys, him going up to guys and establishing those connections, that still isn't changing. Just because the practices are over before the season doesn't mean that leadership style changes. And he's on Rashod, he's on Zay Flowers, he's on Mark Isaiah Likely because he wants to win. He knows what he needs to do to be able to do his part. And I think that honestly has brought the best out of these guys, including Rashod Bateman.
It's interesting because getting on guys Lamar style, I kind of like. He has this there's a competitive, I want to win, but I want us to win. And there's a business quote that is used quite often that says that if you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go as a team. And I believe Lamar Jackson is the latter, where you're trying to go far. And he knows that if his guys, he always says his guys are with him, he's going to be good. They're going to be good. It's interesting when he was saying how, he expects, Bate to make the contested catch. He gets on his guys, but then he's like, yeah, but my guys hold me accountable too. So there is that really cool factor that you see when it comes to Lamar Jackson from a leadership standpoint, encouraging guys in the way Lamar Jackson encourages guys. And I think that's, what makes him MV3 and why they have such great success.
Yeah. And it's all about obviously production on the field, getting the points, scoring the touchdowns, getting the yards. But there's so much that goes into actually doing that. It's execution, but it's also about rallying your guys, making your guys believe. And Lamar, I think, has done a very good job of evolving into that leadership role because they've obviously needed him to as, the star. He's the guy, and the team rallies around him. And I think he's done a great job of embodying that, even if it's a little different. He's not the rah-rah type of leader. He's not the Roquan who's going to get in the huddle before the game and, get all that passion out. But that's fine because Lamar's leadership style works exactly like that.
But you remember what was the game that guys, Marlon Humphreys talked about it, and guys were also echoing the sentiments that when they went in at halftime, Lamar spoke up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And came back out, and they were like, yo, that was, their eyes were like, whoa, wow. Lamar said, we got to, step up. And I think, it's that strategic, he's just strategic in the way in which he reminds me of another conversation I had with one of the Ravens legends in Art Jones, Super Bowl champion, on the 47 squad. And Art was sitting there and, I was on the broadcast team and, doing whatever at the facility as far as taping shows. I'm walking down the hall. He and I, fellow Syracuse alum, we're talking. And I go, yo, man, I noticed your play has stepped up. What's the difference? He said, point blank, man, Ed Reed came up to me. He goes, hey, man, we need more from you. He just walked away. And it inspired the heck out of Art to the point where we saw Art step up and take it to the next. And I think there are guys like the Roquans of the world, a.k.a. Ray Lewis, who's going to have the outward, vocal, all that. And then there are the other guys who still have that four-star general type mentality in Ed Reed, a.k.a. Lamar Jackson, where you just say one or two key things and, oh, my God, he's talking to me. I better do this. I think that's what we see and we're seeing with Lamar when it comes to guys stepping up, doing their job, and doing it extremely well. And that's kudos to Bateman for responding.
Yeah, and look, Lamar has that in him. He has that, rah rah, I'm gonna get on guys, I'm gonna be vocal, I'm gonna be that type of leader in him. But I don't think as you mentioned, Q, it's not as outward like a Ray or a Roquan as that. But when a Lamar would speak, or your story with Ed and Art Jones, when those guys speak, people listen. People listen because it's like, whoa, okay, like this means something. Like it means something to them, so it means something to me. And that's kind of where I think Lamar's leadership style, it's evolved, and I think it's improved for the best. And it's been really cool to see that from him, because as one of the big leaders on the team, you gotta have some level of leadership style. It doesn't really matter which way you decide to go, but you have to have something there. And Lamar obviously has taken a very big step in that direction, I would say. Coming up with the second part of the show, though, we'll talk about the running back battle between Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, what Lamar had to say about it, and our thoughts as well. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Game Time. It's awesome going to watch football live. A memory I have is I was at the Super Bowl between the Ravens and the 49ers back in 2013, and I was on the side where the lights ended up not going out, so I could see across where the lights actually did go out after the halftime in the third quarter when that happened. And certainly wasn't great for the game, but obviously it is a memory that I have, and I'm looking forward to making new memories whenever I go. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks photos up the vault to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And so for this Ravens and Eagles game coming up, if you want to find great seats with great deals, head over to Game Time Picks. They have super deals and other tiers of deals. Plus, the app has so many great features like Game Time Picks, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. We're back. Locked on Ravens, second segment. Kadri Ismail, Kevin Oestreicher, still talking with you here. Ravens and Eagles coming up on Sunday. And man, I'm excited for this game. I really am. We got two great offenses, two great defenses, a bunch of talent on both sides of the ball. But I think the battle that everybody's looking at is Derrick Henry versus Saquon Barkley. Saquon having a heck of a season in Philadelphia. Derrick Henry, same thing in Baltimore. And in my opinion, you're looking at obviously the best two running backs in the game right now. Two players who are in the Offensive Player of the Year conversation. I know people are talking about Saquon for MVP right now. I don't know if I'll go that far, but Saquon is having a great season. Lamar was talking about stories. They played in an all-star game in high school, and Lamar leaped over, you're talking about Saquon is leaping over people's heads and all that, which is just, we saw him do it backwards in Philly, so it's not necessarily uber surprising that we heard that story from Lamar. He's not necessarily reading too much into the running back matchup in general, but I think that when you look at these two players, they're going to have some of the most monumental impact on this game, in my opinion.
They are. I think anytime you look at A-plus level alphas on a ball club, you know it's going to be an exciting ball game. You know, overall, the storyline has to be, whether you're Nick Sirianni or you're John Harbaugh, like you're telling your coordinators, hey, what are we doing? What's our package for our star players? I mean, that's just the name of the game. So, yeah, this is going to be box office. This is going to be where we sit back and, we enjoy the show. The matinee is going to be on full display. I think when it comes to, Derrick Henry and what he brings to the table, what Saquon brings to the table, clearly, you got Lamar and Jalen on both sides of the ball as well. Our defense might not be as, stellar as what we're seeing with the Philadelphia Eagles, but, Kyle Hamilton, I mean, good golly. Dude had to wear the green dot, performed extremely well at the line, performed in the mid-level, and performed deep as well. So all three levels, we saw 14 just doing what 14 does, just balling. So I think, the matchups are there. The matchups are set. I think to Saquon and your point, it's interesting because when he was in New York, and I remember going to do that game, and he didn't really. It just seemed like he was just okay. It wasn't like he was just like, wow. I think he's really coming to his own. He's deserving of at least being in the conversation
Yeah.
of MVP. I don't think he is like the front runner, but shoot, after his performance against the Rams, I mean, he deserves to be in the conversation. And I absolutely just think it's awesome that both he and Derrick, people who counted them out, now all of a sudden they're sitting there and both guys are showing that, yeah, put us on the right team, give us a coordinator that understands, and then give us an offensive line that is physical and dominant. Man, that's a recipe for good, strong, physical football. Them, the Detroit Lions, those are the three teams that like they know. And they know that with a run game, you can go far.
Yeah, and I think the big thing too that I think is awesome is you and IQ had the conversation before the season, really went back in free agency about the running back position and how valued, or I guess undervalued, it was. And Derrick Henry's been a big vocal proponent of getting guys paid. He obviously was very supportive of Saquon and all the guys who were getting paid during the offseason. And then, you continuously see him talking about it during the year and supporting Saquon during his awesome game against the Rams on Sunday night, tweeting at him. And, those guys have a lot of respect for each other, which I think is really cool. So you got two guys who are at the top of their league, playing the top of their game, and, they're complimenting each other. And it's just everything that goes on with it is really, really cool in my opinion. But something that gives me confidence, at least for the Ravens side of things, for Derrick Henry. Eagles have a good rushing defense. They're 11th in the league, giving up 4.3 yards per attempt. They've been solid against the run all year. But Baltimore, against the Chargers, they stuck with the run. That's something we didn't really see against Pittsburgh. And we talked about that, where Derrick Henry fumbles and they kind of went away from it. They got back to what they were doing, that they exploited the Chargers' weakness, and I was very happy they did, because that was a big part of the game plan. Derrick Henry got rolling, and once he did, it's very hard to stop him. So I think in this game, even though Philly has a much better run defense than the Chargers do, I think you have to keep attacking them that way, because we know Philly's going to do the same thing and try to attack Baltimore's top-rated rushing defense. I think we're going to see a lot of carries in this game for both guys, and I think Baltimore, even if Philly goes up or even if something happens, you can't get away from that, because we've seen that happen before. And as Lamar said, back against Pittsburgh, felt like that was the AFC Championship. You just can't have that continuous thing happen whenever you get down or something bad happens.
Interesting points. Love all of it. And I think the one thing that Pittsburgh did, it's you got away from it, but you couldn't overcome your own mistakes. So if it is a big play and it gets brought back, that is a tough thing to overcome. And I think what Todd Monken was like, man, if I can get a chunk play off of this, then maybe we can kind of get back in the groove of it. To the Chargers game where John Harbaugh, you're on your 16-yard line, now you're like, okay, I guess we're going to just try to draw them off sides. Nope, it didn't work. Hey, let's go to the sideline. Let's think, okay, let's go ahead and just, tush push this thing and see how it unfolds. Honestly, you had to have that. But once you had it, that's where Todd Monken, I think, was like cooking. And so my point is that you got to stay on schedule. You can't get behind and expect to it be okay. This is the National Football League, and it doesn't matter the records. Any team that is, fighting their own selves, it's a recipe for disaster. So again, to your point, by sticking to the game plan, and you have these long sustaining drives. What is it, like 5 out of the last 6 drives, they put points up on the board? That's the formula. Drives, keeping the ball away from guys. Hey, it's 4th and short again. We got Lamar, you under center. Okay, with you 20, you're giving it to the King Henry. King Henry, what is he doing? Stiff arm your boy. Go ahead and stiff arm another dude, get the first down. It's that mentality that I think, really is winning football.
Yeah, and if the Ravens' biggest opponent is not themselves, they put themselves in a good situation. And sometimes the reason people say that they're the biggest opponent is because, they get in their own way and they overthink things sometimes. When you keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, stupid. That's what it is. You got to go out there, got to ride your guys, got to ride your stars, and Derrick Henry is absolutely one of those guys. So Lamar said it's a great matchup. He's not necessarily worried about it, but we're going to see two greats on Sunday going at it. And honestly, multiple when we talk about the other positions in this contest. Coming up, though, we'll dive more into the Ravens and Eagles. We'll preview that game. Plus, we'll do a little more recap on the Ravens and Chargers game, get Q's thoughts on that as well. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So then you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, your live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. This is FanDuel.com to join today. So for this Ravens and Eagles game, Ravens open up as 3-point home favorites. So if you like the Ravens, if you like the Eagles, be sure to pick your side over on FanDuel. Again, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail still chopping it up with you here. Appreciate everybody again for tuning in today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen. Each and every day, be sure to subscribe, video form, audio form. We have you covered with 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Q Ravens 30-23 over the Chargers. Let's start there before moving into the Philadelphia game a little bit for week 13. I think the final score doesn't tell the whole story. I think Baltimore dominated the game a little more than that says. Now, slow start for Baltimore. You had no Roquan Smith. Malik Harrison struggled early, but came on super strong late and finished as one of the best defensive players on the field. We talked about Derrick Henry, how he got going. A couple of big touchdown passes from Lamar. What did you see from Baltimore in the game?
From a Rams perspective, from a Chargers perspective, they looked at J.K. Dobbins and him running the football as their key to winning the game. From a Malik Harrison perspective, it was okay. They're getting at you in that first drive and how it's looking. Christian Welch, Chris Board, all three of them, they were struggling. But then you saw it settle down, and I was really impressed by the way in which guys are like, you know what? If they're going to be physical, I got to be physical. I liked how Malik Harrison was just running to the ball and just being physical. And like, you know what? This is me. I'm just going to be me. Chris Board, same thing. Christian Welch, same thing. Be you. You can't be another player and, try to figure it out. You got to be you under pressure. And I think that's really the big, thing to me that was so impressive. It was the way in which the subplots worked itself out. Sure, it was a blessing for the Ravens that, J.K. wasn't able to finish the game, wishing him well, hoping he gets back. But certainly they were a different team when he went out. I appreciated the fact that a couple times you could see where, why am I drawing a blank? Justin Herbert, thank you. He was stepping up into the pocket, but then they started doing a better job of not allowing that stepping up into the pocket, and the coverages on the back end was a lot tighter. Still some things that, I was like, they could have went either way, pass interference-wise. Some of his passes down the football field, like Nate Wiggins. Let's just say be grateful that Justin wasn't able to just get the normal touch that he would have over the top, because a couple of times, some of his receivers, they were in football, NFL terms, they were open for big plays down the football field. So some things went the defensive way, and that was a good thing. And hey, Justin Tucker, he makes a field goal. But I think, the overall groove of what I took away from that game was that, okay, defense, applause, applause, applause. Because, we talked about this offense earlier in the other segments, but it was the defense that I thought, was going to make me a little bit concerned, but they stood tall.
Yeah, and did what they were supposed to do multiple weeks. Were able to contribute at a high level, and they have to continue it against a really tough Philadelphia offense. We've obviously talked a lot about Saquon Barkley this show, mentioned Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. Now, Devontae Smith might not play in this game, which would be a big loss for Philadelphia, but that offensive line in Philly also is no joke. And you look at their defense, I mean, they have the best pass defense in the league with a lot of guys contributing to that. They have a bunch of pass rushers. And then you have Baltimore's side of things where they're number one in pass offense, and number one in rush offense, and number one in run defense. So two absolute juggernauts facing off in this one, Q. What are you looking for, and who do you think comes out on top?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Philly, they've had their kind of ups and downs. But if you talk to Philly fans, they feel like they haven't really been tested fully yet. And so this here is their big test. They had some previews, if you will, with the Commanders, and obviously Jaden Daniels, but I think he wasn't quite at full go. Whatever you want to take from that. But I think for what we're seeing for them and how they are playing, they got their RPO stuff going. They got, like you said, their offensive line and the way in which they have utilized Saquon Barkley, not only as a runner, but also in the passing game. They ain't afraid to throw him a little check down, let him do what he does as well. Devontae Smith, I am so thankful that, there's a potential for him not to be there because, man, that dude is a headache. So if he is playing, hold on to your horses. I think A.J. Brown, he's coming into his groove after having his hamstring issues. I think this is where, you as a defense, you want to grow. You grow with games like this. And you show that, we're going to build off of what we did with the Chargers. We're going to build off of what we did all bet in a loss versus the Steelers. We're going to build off of those games and off of those performances, and we're going to even be better. And then basically, hey, offensive line, man, you got to keep doing what you're doing because that D-line with Carter and company, I mean, they're no joke. And I don't want to wish anybody harm when it comes to injuries, and I want everybody to play. But man, Brandon Graham, he was balling. He was doing his thing, as a 36-year-old D lineman. Like just, unfortunately, he had the ruptured bicep or tricep tendon. So it is what it is. But yeah, man, I think if Derrick Henry and Lamar can put pressure on the defense to cause them to pause, I think it'll be really cool to see how Nick Sirianni handles Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I know it's going to be a battle for Zay and Bate, good corner situation, but I believe you get that tight end groove going, it's going to open up everything else on the outside. And I believe this is a game where the Ravens, they do what they do. It's at home. I think they handle it. I think they take care of business. It's going to be an interesting game. I still believe Ravens put up 30-plus points. What defense shows up? And that's where I think it might be a score of Ravens, 33, and I'll probably give the Eagles 28.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's going to be a close game, high-scoring game, but I feel like if you can work play action, if you're the Ravens, like you said, Q, get that defense guessing, get them pausing, get them thinking, it's always tough. And I also think that, to your point, the Eagles necessarily, their level of tests have not been as high as the Ravens and how good they are. So this will be maybe a wake-up game, but still really, really good, close game in my opinion. But appreciate you, Q. Thanks for hopping on. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, of course.
Yeah, man, it's always about missile training. You can go to missiletraining.com to have an understanding about human movement and sports performance, because it's not about your age. I work with as young as 6, and it's not about a person who doesn't play sports. My oldest client is 85, and the gentleman, he moves really well, but he's not about trying to be competitive in any sports anytime soon. It's about longevity, and it's about durability, and then all the other additives of speed and agility. But with missiletraining.com, you can go ahead and dialogue with me, reach out to me. I'll answer the emails and all the things back at you. DM me, of course, if you would like to, on my X handle at the bottom of the screen there. But WJZ is where you'll also find me with my Purple pregame shows every Sunday, break it all down, giving you an understanding of what it is that we're looking for the upcoming Ravens games. And Locked on Ravens, it is all about Kevin Allstriker, Kadri Ismail. We give you all the Raven content that you need. Find us on your podcast platforms.
You already know it. You already know it. So you can find Q here every week with us. And, of course, find him everywhere else he is. Be sure to check out missiletraining.com as well. All the links in the description down below. Q, again, appreciate you. And thank you to everybody for tuning in to Locked on Ravens. On the way out, hit that like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form as well and subscribe. You know what it is here on Locked on Ravens. We'll be back here soon with more Ravens coverage and content. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked on Ravens.